I wanted to know if you've ever heard of this book, Dupingy's Memoirs of Haiti.
No. Sounds interesting though.
Yeah, it's actually about Haiti and how education shaped a lot of its immigrants. And there were many immigrants that migrated to places like Brooklyn, New York, Florida, and it's just talking about mainly their experience in New York and the education system.
Was it good?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
No, their experience in
their
New York and the
experience.
education system.
According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, education can be defined as the action or process of teaching someone or the knowledge, skill, and understanding that one gets from attending a school, college, or university. With my year as an educator under AmeriCorps, I began to question what the purpose of an education was and how many people could identify with the purpose of their own education.
What does education mean to you?
Education, just to me, it just means constant learning. Doesn't necessarily have to be only from school, doesn't have to necessarily be only formal education, but I feel like you can learn from everything, everybody, even an experience that you learn from, mistakes that you've made, and you've created some type of lesson around it. That's education to me as well. So I don't have like a definite definition of what it means to me, because it's kind of ever changing and constantly happening. You can learn from pretty much anything. Just meeting a new person can be a form of education, because now you're learning about someone's culture or background or how they grew up and how it's different from how you grew up. Or just picking up a book, that's another form of education. Like for me, education is everything, and it means everything, and it's just everywhere.
I think everyone should be entitled to an education because it is the one thing that separates us from the rest. Being that we're able to hold on to knowledge, understand knowledge, and then to apply it into the world and into ourselves is something that's very unique to human beings, and everyone should have the right to do so.
What is the goal of education?
I think the goal of education is to empower the upcoming generation. I feel like a lot of these children, they need a role model, and they need someone, who has made it or who has accomplished a certain amount of things to show them and give them the tools that they need to, attain any career that they want in any field. Kids learn by example. So, for example, with my children, I try to show them, look, I went to college, I did this, I went after my dreams, I didn't listen to what people wanted me to do, and it is possible for you to go after exactly what you want to do. Whether that's going, to continue your education in college, or whether that's picking up a trade. I feel like as an African American educator, it's very important that I pass on the legacy that was given to me from my former teachers, meaning there were times when we weren't allowed to get an education or even to go to college. You know what I'm saying? So just the fact that we have that opportunity now, we really need to take advantage of it, and kids won't know that unless you express it to them or, once again, show by example.
Even as an educator now, I see how different certain environments or certain communities are when it comes to education, where certain communities, the education can be better in public schools, and some of them, it's a lot of distractions going on within the community, and it makes it hard for children to focus in school.
In their political activity, the dominant elite utilize the banking concept to encourage passivity in the oppressed, corresponding with the latter's submerged state of consciousness. Take advantage of that passivity to fill that consciousness with slogans which create even more fear of freedom.
What do you think about this quote?
Well, I love what you brought up about the banking concept and its correlation with education. Primarily because in the education system now, I feel like teachers are using the whole positive reinforcement concept to, really win over students and get test scores up, whereas that's not the main goal of education. It's not just about test scores. It should be about kids actually wanting to learn and not just doing, homework or doing assignments, extra credit, just to get a reward in the end, or just to get that shine or that star, that sticker on the board outside of the classroom. I feel like kids are missing the passion for learning and the passion for bettering themselves to create a better community and a better country, a better world. That I want to read, I want to learn, I want to, expand my thinking, my knowledge of this particular subject, of this particular issue. Look at the world you live in. You need to have this knowledge. It is very essential that you're passionate about getting this knowledge or getting this education.
Dupingy's Memoirs of Haiti focuses on Haitian education systems and cultural issues. It also focuses on the cultural and legal issues that Haitians face while assimilating and adapting into the mainstream of American society.
I'm going to read a quote from the book. Furthermore, without any representation in the power decision-making process, it is very unlikely to achieve or fulfill the American dream of progress and optimism in the land of opportunity. So what do you think about this quote?
A lot of people don't seem to understand that culture and background affects education just as much as anything else. And because there's not a lot of representation, it's hard to educate anyone without some type of connection. One struggle that I'm having at work right now is a lot of our teachers our classroom is pretty much all African American children, all coming from Caribbean backgrounds. And a lot of our teachers who are mostly Caucasian, they can't relate to our students, so they can't teach them the way they would want them to learn. There's a reason why education is different to different people. I mean, when I was in high school, I was learning about Shakespeare, but when I would go to Florida or Georgia, those kids are not learning about Shakespeare and we're the same age. And it shows just how different education is just by crossing state lines. You don't even have to be from a different country. You don't even have to cross a border. Literally just crossing state lines.
This Common Core standard that is passed throughout all schools, especially as an educator for early childhood, is not fair in terms of when you look at schools in East Flatbush or schools in Brownsville or schools in East New York or any one of these economically challenged areas. When I see that there's students in Long Island that are doing the same curriculum, but they are provided so much more opportunities outside of school from their parents, from their whatever caregivers they have, whatever extracurricular activities that they're exposed to on weekends and after school, it's different from the experiences that these children face. So I do feel like it needs to be an equitable representation.
There's a lack of representation to fulfill progress or opportunity for America or Haiti. I would say that I believe that there is representation. However, there's a lack of leadership. What I've learned in my experience is that there are always a pipeline of folks to be able to do great work. However, if they're not developed and equipped with the necessary skills or tools to lead, then everything that they've been given, all the opportunities that they have, and all the skills that they may be able to sharpen is all for naught if they're not able to lead. So yes, there is representation. However, leadership needs to be developed in order to move the country forward.
So New York recently passed a law that has allowed its residents to gain more access to higher education in terms of college. How do you feel like that is going to add to everyone's ability to obtain formal education?
I think it's helpful because the excuse of not having money to go to school will no longer fly. So now it's like, how bad do you really want this education? If you really want it now, what are you going to do to get it now that it's it's set free? But I know there's probably some underlying stipulation to it. But if it is really truly free, so what is going to stop you from going to school now? Like, what keeps you from not doing it? Because the one excuse that most people tend to have, or at least a good 95%, is the fact that they don't have money. I mean, I have a friend right now who's struggling because he doesn't have money to finish paying off his last semester, which sucks because it's like you're so close to the end, but you're so far away. So to make school free, it's relieving and it's helpful in my eyes.
I had the chance to sit down and talk with the author of the book about the infrastructure and importance of education. He's someone I know and has first-hand experience as a student in Haiti, New York, and South America. He has also taught in New York for over 25 years.
So I want to say thank you for taking the time to have this discussion today. I'm really excited to discuss the contents of your book, Dupingy's Memoirs of Haiti, and discuss how Haitians and immigrants were impacted by their education and how their migration to American society has also impacted the culture here. So the quote says that individuals have to adjust themselves to American society or agree to accommodative pluralism. So my question is, how does education form a realm of duality?
It is indeed to be involved or evolve around duality. Immigrants have to learn English, to learn the American culture, to be able to adjust to society by acquiring the skills, the technique, and the way to make progress in society by keeping your own culture and your society and agree to make changes to the new culture by educating yourself, have skills, technique, professions, and involve in civic matter. Register to vote, mobilize people to vote, and mobilization requires money. Raise money to support candidates, support an agenda for your own community to make progress. No community will make progress without those kind of strategy of keeping your own culture and adjust to the American society. So therefore, you will be able to be integrated into the mainstream of society for progress.
So a follow-up question would just be, how could an American, if they're not an immigrant, be able to identify with that duality? As a student, a college student, how do college students have two different perspectives on life?
College students have to prepare themselves, they acquire the academic skills, the technical skills, the professional skills, and also involved in civic matter, like register to vote, mobilize others to register to vote, and to support candidates that support your own community. So you cannot have passivity. You cannot have passivity, passive citizens, in order to go ahead. You need active citizens. So that duality you are talking about is asking you to be involved in the civic and the community affairs by registering to vote, mobilize to vote, and supporting candidates that supporting the agenda of progress for your community.
I wanted to know what your take on for cultural invasion was, as referred to by Paulo Freire, was in comparison to accommodative pluralism that you mentioned in your book.
Okay. Paulo Freire usually use a dialectic to show contradiction between the view of the imperialist and the view of the native people. The imperialists impose their culture on the native people. They impose their religion, their language, their way of life upon the native or indigenous people. So indigenous people have to fight against cultural imperialism in order to keep their own culture while accommodating to the way, the mode the imperialists impose on them. To learn the culture, the language of the imperialists in order to get access to knowledge like mathematics, physics, chemistry, and so on. So it's always a fight between the imperialists who want to impose their culture on the native indigenous people and the indigenous people who want to keep their own culture and at the same time acquire the knowledge and the language of the imperialists, the oppressor, in order to make change positive change in the society. So accommodative periodism is in a way to keep your own culture, meaning your native language, your religion, while acquiring the language of the dominant culture in order to learn the scientific and technological knowledge you want in order to make progress in your society. So there is always a fight, a dialectical machinery that's going on between the native indigenous people and the imperialist power.
How does the 25% of income that Haitians spend for education compare to the amount Americans spend on education?
There is no comparison per se between Haiti, the poor country, and the Caribbean compared to the United States, the richest country in the world, or in the American continent, on matter of expenditure and spending of parents on education. 25% of income of Haitian people living in the rural area to the education of their children is huge compared to the Americans who receive free textbook from the school system of the state. For primary and secondary school, American people did not pay a dime to buy school supplies. The state supply the students with the textbook. The American parents only buy the notebook, pens and pencil. So there is no comparison whatsoever.
The pains of your history run through our veins, as your past and present seem to rummage through our brains, and many may tarnish your name. Haiti, my chérie, with shores that give waves of restitution, soil of the first Black Revolution, your memory will forever remain true to our hearts, because education has brought us farther than borders can control. No one knows what the future will hold. Reasons why knowledge is power and key. To apply wisdom and assert the responsibility to be free. Freedom is our inalienable right, but we also have a responsibility to not let passivity engulf our lives, and most importantly, be the pillar for social change to rise.